A typical Sunday will end with a lot of waste being generated. Waste bins should be placed at vantage points on the grounds, and there should be notices posted to conscientize members to dump waste into bins and not just on the ground. The facilities manager should also register with a waste company to pick up waste at regular times. It could be once or twice, or even 3 times, depending on the size of the church. And these companies can fail sometimes, so it's always good to have a backup for waste collection. Landscaping and gardening services. The church can employ a gardener, or in the case of bigger sites, engage the services of a landscaping company to take care of the lawn, the flowers, and all the plants, just to beautify the premises. Fumigation and pest control is also very important, and this should be carried out at least once a year to help to get rid of mosquitoes, cockroaches, rodents, and other pests. This service is usually outsourced also. Utility services and alternatives. The main utility services we have are water and electricity. The facilities manager should ensure that water and electricity bills are always paid on time and must keep track of the payments. We also have FMs managing alternatives like their standby generator, and we need to ensure that it's regularly serviced and fueled so that you can fall on it whenever you need to. Water tanks should also be provided and connected to the facilities to be used when water from the mains is not flowing. Generator plants also, of course, should be covered by service level agreements. The next is general supplies. If a cleaning company has been engaged, then they will take care of their detergents, for cleaning. However, there's the need to stock, to have a backup on a few supply of detergent, and any other item that you will need for the comfort of church members and visitors. There should be fixed times for delivery of supplies. But in this case also, it would be a good idea to have a backup plan in the event that they don't come as scheduled, because sometimes there are disappointments. The next is records keeping. Facilities managers must keep records of activities on the church premises. And so there should be a place where all records are kept, especially information on costs associated with running the facility. This comes in very useful when you have to budget at the beginning of the next year. You go through and you see how much you spent on each activity, and you're able to budget better. The last but not the least is leases and tenancies. And as I mentioned earlier, if the church owns its own property, then there are no lease agreements. But where it has rented a property, then the property manager has to manage the lease administration. He acts as the go-between the church leadership and the landlord of the property where they have rented. And he also ensures that all the covenants, the terms and the conditions that are in the agreement are being adhered to by the church, so that it doesn't get the church into trouble. Now, I want to answer the question, who should be made responsible for property and facilities management services in the church? The ideal would be to have a church member with property management and facilities management experience to do that. But failing that, we could train somebody in the church. I mean, proper professional training, I'm emphasizing on that because I think some people sometimes they use the administrator or somebody else who has no idea about facilities management or property management, and it causes some problems for them. And so if there's nobody in the church with that experience who can either be employed or do the work as a volunteer, it would be good to train someone to take care of that. I'd like to talk about volunteers. It's always helpful for church leadership to encourage other members to volunteer to help with church facilities management. Getting them involved this way will not only give them a sense of purpose, but I believe that it will also help them to give them the opportunity to give back to the ministry. And whilst doing that, it will be lowering the cost of operations. They could be trained to help with minor janitorial work, especially for big programs when there's so much human traffic, especially in the washrooms. It's good to get volunteers to help at such times. We can also organize big church cleanups, maybe once or twice a year, and get people to volunteer to go into the corners and the areas where we have not looked at throughout the year. Housekeeping. I believe that church members should be given some general housekeeping guidelines, maybe within their small group meetings, because even in our homes, there are people who have very bad housekeeping practices. You can have a man and a woman, like a married couple, and one is always leaving lights on, and one is always putting the lights off. One is always leaving the air conditioning on, open a door, will not close it. And there's so many bad housekeeping habits. And in the church, it's multiplied over and over. And so it's a good, I'm very passionate about this. It's a good thing for us to give people this kind of training. And it will go a long way to reduce the littering and the cluttering of church space. Okay, and acts like making use of trash bins that have been provided, cleaning up after them when they visit the washroom, replacing items like loose furniture after usage, mopping up floors after accidental spills, putting off lights and air conditioners that have been left on, ensuring that all taps are turned off during water shortage, and cleaning up after social events. You know, I believe that if this is taught continually over time, it will become a church culture and make members responsible and disciplined, and also ensure that the church space is always clean, as well as save cost of operations. I'd like to look at stakeholder management now. The property and facility management function often has a long list of stakeholders. We have community and the neighbors, church leadership, office staff, church attendees and members, product suppliers, service providers, auditors, regulatory bodies, and of course landlords if the church's property is rented. Stakeholder management is a very important aspect of facilities management, as it involves building and maintaining relationships with all these people that I have listed. And because of time, I'll just talk about just one, the community or neighborhood in which the building, the church is situated. Some of the ways in which the facilities managers can help maintain good relationships with the church's neighbors include ensuring that the premises are kept clean, fumigated regularly, gardens are well manicured, and security is provided for high traffic events. This will go a long way to, bring some amount of peace between us and our neighbors. I'd like to just give a summary of the practical strategies that I've already enumerated. The first one is that we need to engage a church member who has experience in property management and facilities management, or train someone for that purpose, and also engaging professional service providers for outsourced services. Also, we need to cover the outsourced services with service level agreements. It just explains exactly what ought to be done, what is expected of each party. We can even measure the performance metrics like turnaround time, when I call you, how many hours it should take you to come and all that. When all that is put in the service level agreement, it makes the work run very smoothly. And I also said that we should encourage volunteerism and train members in housekeeping. All right. As I end, and I'm just ending, permit me to share a few thoughts which I gleaned from an article I read from Ministry Tools Resource Center on facilities management, which has, I must say, had a great impact on me personally and my role in managing property and facilities for the church. This is what it says. So often we use terminology that equates the church with the building where people meet to worship. The church, however, is the people, the body of Christ, and not the building. The Ekklesia, gathering of people who are called out. If we keep that distinction, we'll become more flexible in regards to the building we call church, as we bear in mind that, one, the church building is for the people. It's not a shrine or a god unto itself. We will not become so rigid and protective of the facilities that people cannot use them. The church facilities, too, the church facilities are for use to accomplish ministry and not an end in themselves. We will not be so stuck in tradition and the way we've always arranged furnishings and designed and designated rooms that we can't rearrange to better promote fellowship and the meeting of people's needs. I mean, sometimes you are there and my senior associate pastor, who is here, will come and say, Betty, we want to change the use of this room, you know? And if you are not flexible in that sense, the use to which is supposed to enhance the church work. And if you just, you're myopic and you just think about, you know, I've just arranged this room for this purpose and I'm being asked to do so much work. Sometimes it's a renovation, sometimes it's pulling something down and building something. If you don't have it in mind that the church facilities are tools for ministry to people and not an end in themselves, you might not want to do that, or there might be a disagreement somewhere. So if we do that, we'll not be stuck in the way we've arranged things and designed rooms so that we refuse or we are reluctant to rearrange to better promote fellowship and the meeting of people's needs. 4, the church building is a temporary structure, not what defines us or goes into eternity. So we will not hold on so tightly if it becomes necessary to make changes. And the last but not the least, the building has to be functional for living out God's purposes and not our own purposes. When we understand that church is people and that people have greater importance, we will become more relaxed regarding the management of church facilities. I will leave us all with some food for thought, as church, with some food for thought. As property and facilities managers managing church property, are we setting up our facilities so God's purposes and design for the church can best be facilitated wherever we meet? Are we being stewards of what God has entrusted to us And does it reflect God's ownership? And finally, are we managing it efficiently without wasting any resources? Thank you very much. God bless you.